Did you see it coming? I didn't see it. Well, I mean, I should have seen it coming realistically, because it's been coming for a long time. I think the US Speed Tour was where it all began. See, what happened in the US Speed Tour update, the third season of the Crew 2, we got some quality of life changes, along with the summit being reworked to have, you know, top 11,000 on PlayStation and whatnot. It also got a change where a lot, and I mean a lot, of street events had their checkpoints and respawns reworked. Anything from Pikes Peak to basically any event in street with a shortcut was patched. It was, well, mostly patched. There was still a few in Harlem West, but that's where I'll begin. See, the contractor saw even more of these. Some of the even like further newly found shortcuts that were only found because apparently I've got a Christmas Gallardo that people started doing because they were left in after this shortcut patch. These shortcuts were still in the game. They even went ahead and patched those, but that was done afterwards during the contractor. You know, we had a lot of time with these shortcuts in the game. See, I suppose a lot of all we can say is it's just not what the Crew 2 wants for their game, I suppose. And I will straight away go ahead and ask you guys, what do you guys think of these changes? Because another change that came this update that they didn't really say anything about is that rock right there. You may know Harlem West as the best event for money grinding in the Crew 2. It's the best event for money grinding. And I don't know why, especially considering it wasn't talked about, but this one rock was added to stop you from taking that shortcut. Now, I'm gonna try it again and see, because I know there's a slightly different shortcut you can take, and I'm gonna take that. But yes, there's a theme here. They didn't tell us that they'd added this rock when they patched this shortcut. We weren't told that this shortcut was patched. We were told with Contractor and US Speed Tour, we were most definitely told that, you know, these shortcuts weren't going to be in the game anymore. But let's try and take this shortcut the different way, which is like here. I guess that still works. So, you know what? It seems even more weird that they've patched it. Oh, sorry, put a rock in the place of it. That they weirdly only patched that. And I don't know if there's many other odd one-off street races that they patched. I guess you boys can let me know in the comments along with what you think of this patch. But as soon as the first time it was ever patched, the shortcuts were altered. Straight away, the first race that came into question, a race infamous for its shortcuts, a race that isn't hypercar, but is better known as the longest rally raid event in the game, New York Hypercar. It's been in the game since the very beginning. It was played by Zerka and Bazinga when they still played the game, when the mainstream audience was still on the Crew 2. It's known as the longest race in the game, known for its sweats that'll play the game, the race over and over again, for its shortcut knowledge qualities. And that was instantly brought up into question when the shortcut patches began. But nothing happened to it. For those two updates, for 8 months after shortcuts began being patched, nothing happened to everyone's beloved New York. Until this update today. But ever since, I guess, Air Nitro, this is the first major change to New York in the Crew 2's history, as far as I'm aware, that is. And you know what? They didn't even tell us. Well, they did eventually, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Not only do shortcut guides of New York have many views, because it's a famous race for its shortcuts. People see a race where the world record is 24 minutes long. They play it themselves and get 40 minutes, you know, and people get curious. Where are all these shortcuts? You know, where are they all coming from? So this brings a lot of traction and a lot of popularity to the shortcuts, especially given the ridiculousness of a lot of them. We start here at the beginning at just 4% in. Instead of following that whole track in the bottom right that you can see, you just take a beeline left, drive up this little mountain here, end up on this road, and eventually you get back on the route the race wants you to go on. Would this be fixed with like maybe 2 checkpoint placements? Yes. But it hasn't been. And it's a ridiculous shortcut in itself. It's just so goofy that that works the way it does. I do want you boys to let me know what you think about it. I already said that, but it's a really controversial change that I'm really surprised they went forward with. Because, hey, like I said, when the first the shortcut patches came around, there was a lot of controversy. There was a lot of controversy. Because it was speculated that New York would have been in there, but as soon as it wasn't, it was just sort of assumed that, no, they know that people would be annoyed. They're too afraid of the backlash to change New York. New York is probably going to stay the same. Because along with New York, no hypercar race, there's a... no words, really. Not a single hypercar event was changed. All the hypercar events are truly famous for their extreme abundance of shortcuts. Latrell's Car Part 1 being no different to that. That used to be the event that I played a lot for money, etc. and parts. And Latrell's Car Part 1 is no stranger to having very many, very interesting shortcuts. Shortcuts that just seem like, how is this even a thing? You know, how is this... how is it possible for this to be this broken in shortcuts and back on track? So when hypercar wasn't touched, it was assumed that it was too taboo of a topic to touch. But clearly not. Speaking of back on tracks, when I say this is the biggest change made to New York ever, there was a change that perhaps, maybe was close to this. Once upon a time, big checkpoints like the big shortcuts, like the one I'm going to talk about today, were even easier than this. Instead, they were way easier because you'd get to a certain point and all you'd have to do is wait for this waypoint above my head here. You just have to wait for that to go to the road that you're trying to make it to. And as soon as it did that, all you have to do is hold both bumpers and back on track. And instead of what it does now, which is teleport you to where you left the road, it teleported you to the closest road, or the closest road to where the waypoint continued. And that made it so much easier. Instead of taking massive, cartoonishly big dives off of mountains and having to land on a road and getting the wrong landing and then having to find your way back to the road, you would just get halfway there and then hold both bumpers, and there you are. You're already at the next part of the race, skipping upwards of 20%. Okay, that may be a bit of hyperbole. I don't think it was actually 20%. Here we go. We're getting to one of the other slightly goofy shortcuts. This one isn't terrible. You just sort of skip a big wide, a big old round area, and instead you just go head on directly off-road. There's a car there. And you get to ride these little, squiggly things to gain a little bit of speed so you're not going off-road speed, which is a lot slower. Now, one big thing about this, though, was like that Harlem West change, which actually still hasn't been addressed. This wasn't in any patch notes, which is really confusing. Because originally, what I assumed, when I heard that 82% had been patched, I was like, has it, though? I haven't heard anything about it. Until a fellow content creator, Tommy from Wally, showed me about it. I didn't know. But people were annoyed because they hadn't said anything. And because they hadn't said anything, along with the fact that the leaderboards for the race had not been reset, meaning that, after this checkpoint change, it was still all the times without the checkpoint change on the leaderboards, I assumed it... Okay, ow. I assumed this change was made by mistake. I assumed that this wasn't supposed to be added yet. I assumed that maybe they were going to change New York. They added this few checkpoint placements, but actually wanted to patch the whole of it, because like I'm showing here, shortcuts like these are still in the game. Shortcuts like this stuff still exist. So I assumed that they accidentally added this checkpoint change and actually meant to wait to patch all the shortcuts and then reset the leaderboards, but here we are. They owned up to it. Owned up to it with this tweet right here. It will be on screen right now. With the release of Season 5, we have added additional checkpoints in the New York hypercar race. These checkpoints prevent players from jumping from the hill, thus gaining an unintended advantage. A full leaderboard cleanup for this race only will follow shortly. Now, I being the bumbling oaf that I am, I ran out of storage space for the last recording, so this is actually me recording a different day. And see, the thing is, I barely remember what I've talked about, even though I literally just was editing and then found out that the recording didn't save. I have no idea what I really talked about, especially because I've had to do 10 minutes worth of New York in between finishing the recording and coming here. But you know what? I think one of the things was that I don't really know the inner workings of Ivory Tower. Now, I may have some connections with Ivory Tower. You know, obviously I have access to the early access that we get every single update. And, you know, I talk to the team that is there for talking to creators, etc. And, but you know, I'm not exactly getting drinks with the lads every time. I'm not sat there with the creative team or the development team or the actual, like, you know, the devs with the coding and whatnot. You know, I don't know the true inner workings of them, but I kind of wish I did, you know. I wish I knew a bit more. Because, yeah, like I said in the beginning, I didn't see this coming. Because it's handled really weirdly. And hey, get a load of this shortcut, by the way. The fact something like this even exists. You just take a left, you skip this whole extra section where you're going around, going onto a highway. Instead, you're here. You go off-road from already going off-road. Get onto this road, and then just wait till you see how we get back on. And I mean, while I'm here on this shortcut, I can carry on what I was saying, which was that it's weird that they've only patched this one shortcut, and the way it's handled is really weird, you know, because they didn't reset the leaderboards. They patched one shortcut. So what's actually the play here? That's why, to me, it feels like this accidentally they left in this patch, because they obviously they didn't tell us that they were gonna bloody patch the shortcut until way later. This is how you get onto the road again. You go up here, and here we are back on the highway, and then you just gotta turn around. I know there is other ways to get back up, but this is the one that I know. So here's my thinking. They want to patch all of the New York shortcuts, which I think they will, because it just seems so dumb. You know, it seems so dumb that a lot of them aren't patched when that one shortcut is. They started working on that shortcut first, and then because they started working on that first, it accidentally got added to the game, and then they've had to backtrack and double down and be like, yep, we're patching it, and because I guess we've patched it, I guess we'll reset the leaderboards too, which they have done now. Which, yeah, that was the tweet I just mentioned. You know, it just feels so odd. Actually, you know what? I take it all back. It makes complete sense. I'm really glad they patched a shortcut where, you know, you skip an entire section of the race, you jump from the top of a hill to the bottom of a hill, and then collect a checkpoint at the bottom of that hill, and are able to just skip an entire section that giving you a completely unintended advantage. You know what? I back it. I completely back that. That's why they patched that shortcut. I'm 100%. I don't know. It's just fun to point it out. Oh, thank God they patched a shortcut where instead of going on the road, you jump off a hill and then land on the next bit of the road. What? Oh, and it's now raining. Okay. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. You know, it's like, by their exact definition, there's other shortcuts that are the exact same. Which is why I would not be surprised if perhaps for Contractor Episode 2, they might do it, or maybe for whatever Season 6 is. They probably will get rid of the last shortcuts in New York, and maybe even clean up a few in Hypercar. Unless these are the ones that they intended. Like, I don't know. It makes no sense. It's like, was that an intended advantage that I just got with that shortcut? I don't know. Is it a bit, like, I'm obviously sat here being like, oh, well, look at this shortcut, and look at this shortcut. If they patched the shortcuts, you could whine and be like, oh, Sid brought it up, and they patched it because Sid was like, oh, if you're gonna patch one, then patch the others. I'm not saying it like, oh, if you're gonna patch one, patch all of them, I'm more just calling out how dumb the whole premise is. Oh, that's okay. Nice. I'm just sort of calling out how dumb the whole premise is, because it's just funny. It's just very, very funny. Now, there's an argument made that shortcuts don't take skill. I've seen this argument be made very, very often, more often than you would think. And it's an interesting argument to get into. And, the whole argument is that, like, oh, it's good that the shortcuts are being removed because your shortcuts don't take skill, or, you're a worse player if you're taking shortcuts. One argument that I heard, which was just outrageously dumb, was just shortcuts aren't even quicker, which just by a matter of fact is not true. But the argument that's actually worth diving into is shortcuts don't take skill. See, the thing is, I think that take is largely incorrect, yet maybe partially true. And the only exception I'll give is back on track. Is the shortcuts that require you to just drive off-road for a little while in the direction of the next road, and then hit 2 buttons to respawn you at the next bit of the road. Those shortcuts, I could understand, Not like these shortcuts, where you actually have to sort of, like, hit something, and hit it right. That's a shortcut I wouldn't expect them to patch. That would be a pointless shortcut to patch. But the thing about shortcuts not taking skill is, if you look at not taking a shortcut, just taking racing lines. Like, say there was a checkpoint every 2 seconds, so you had to take a racing line every single time. See, everyone can take a racing... Okay, I mean, not everyone can take a racing line. I'm not gonna be Gusto over here, A few people are able to take proper racing lines, the true Gran Turismo players. They'll hit the apex perfectly, they'll curve round the turn the way to retain the most speed, they'll have the perfect braking lines, and everything along those lines. Oh, and here talking about one shortcut that I hope they really don't patch, because I hate roads like that. I would much rather be able to just jump this whole road, because god do I hate squiggly roads. See, the thing is, my light isn't even on. My light wasn't on that entire time. See, there is a bunch of things that go into taking shortcuts, though. Not the back on track shortcuts, but other shortcuts, even like this 82%. You may think, oh, you just turn off the road and then go and dive down a mountain. You still have to aim your car, balance it through all the trees, make sure you don't hit a tree, which, yes, may be RNG, but is it any more RNG than racing? Probably, yeah. I think it probably is more RNG than racing, actually. No. Is it any more lacking of skill than the fact that wheel is 10 times better to use? That clutch is 10 times better to use? Like a wheel with a clutch? Is it any better than the fact that any of that is meta? I would say those are more pressing issues than the fact that shortcuts exist. I think it helps balance everything, the shortcuts not being in the game, and it makes it more of a racing, turning, whatever game, rather than just a fun game, I suppose. Shortcuts had a place, they had their own place. Things like wheel being overpowered is just like, ugh, wheel is overpowered. Shortcuts actually had like a, it's shortcuts, they work, they make sense. Especially in something like hypercar, where the issue is that the checkpoints have to be this far apart. Obviously, even for races like Bronx or White Rock Hills, those are short races, yet there's still shortcuts. The long races need to have their checkpoints pretty far apart, and they're having to go, against that to sort of have these shortcut patches. Here we are, by the way. We're getting into the final leg here. We're in the area at 79%. Here comes the big cut. Here we go. Hey, no way. You can still do this. Okay, at least you can still do this cut, you know. Here we go. We can go off this mountain. Oh, that's not how I... To the right. Okay. I guess I didn't do that cut. Okay, normally you would land out in the open. You can even land on this road. And then what the strat would be is normally you would take this shortcut. Let's go for it. You take this checkpoint. You leave the road. Normally you can go off that big mound and stay off the road. And you head down here to this absolutely terrible, annoying tree avoiding... Ow. Like I said, tree avoiding mess that is the 82% shortcut. Now that I think about it a bit more, it's iconic, sure. You know, it's you hate to see it go because it's iconic, but I don't know. Does it being iconic overrule how annoying this shortcut was? And then you follow through here on this rock. You avoid even more trees. Try and actually make it through. Oh my god. Okay, no. Try and actually make it through. And then, okay. And then finally, plow off of this road with more nitro than I have. Land on the next road and die, apparently. Okay, we got spawned a fair bit further ahead, but yeah, you land on that road, but unfortunately, we don't get the checkpoint anymore. Yes, the checkpoints here have been reworked to now no longer being where we can skip that entire section. Instead, if I bust out this video from Mr. Tommy from Wally, a very, very cool German Twitch streamer, who I urge you to check out. He is very German. But he does speak English as well. Oh, okay. Do hop in his stream, and if you speak English with him, he'll reply in it. He's got a lovely accent as well. I love the guy. I don't actually... Listen, it's so German. Yep. He just said clickbait. So here we go. I believe, is he gonna take? Ah, okay. So he goes forward, but I know there's a new shortcut. That's the first checkpoint, and then oh, okay, that's pretty simple. You just go off the peak. You go off the peak. Jump down a hill, skipping a big part of the road, giving you what I can only assume is an unintended advantage. I give up. Like, what is the crew do at this point? I mean, here we go. I guess we can actually try this this new section of the race that a lot of players are going to have to start getting very, very used to. Oh dear. And we can make it down this whole area. You know what? I won't even cut too much now. We'll just sort of leave the gaps in. And here we go. We take this peak. I can do this. Okay, where do we... Okay, sure, okay. Have they really replaced the 82% with just a shorter 82%? And there's even a rock jump. There's even a rock jump. Wait, so they just replaced the 82%. Hey, it's the game. That was a bad update. So they just replaced 82% with a smaller mini 82%. It's the resemblance is uncanny. Instead of going around a turn, you go around the white wall barrier, dive down some very hard to avoid trees, get to a point where there's some trees but some rocks, you go on the rock, you jump off and plummet down to the road onto the checkpoint. Whoa, I don't actually remember where the checkpoint was before. But there you go. That's it, I suppose. I mean, I don't really need to finish the race because there's nothing else left in the race, but there you go. There's not even any normal shortcuts really left. I suppose all there is to say is just, yeah, let me know what you think of this whole change, because it sure is something big. And I think we might see more from it, but again, I really don't know. I'm not I don't really have the inside knowledge that I wish I did, and maybe I could ask if the rest of the checkpoints will get patched, but I wouldn't tell you guys. Yikes. So let me know what you think about New York being patched like it has been, and the new shortcut being just so simple in comparison. So that's going to be about from me. I do hope you boys did enjoy this video because I enjoyed making it. Thank you to popular members, a special thank you to famous members, and an insane thank you to Icon member for the love of life. That's going to be about from me in a bit.
My heart spills, so I'm cleaning up a mess, yeah. I gotta go to church, feel the demons at my neck, yeah. When I'm on a pill, I be feeling like I'm blessed, it's a curse. When I'm on the drugs, I'm the worst, shawty. Tell me how it feels, tell me does it hurt. Tell me if it's wrong when I'm lifting up your shirt, shawty. Tell me if it's real, or would you leave me in the dirt?